I have a major confession to make. I lied to you. In what currently stands as my most viewed video to date, I brazenly claimed that there were only ever 3 professionally used tennis court surfaces: grass, clay, and hard courts. I took you all for fools, and assumed no one would notice or care if I didn't qualify the statement. Well, you noticed. Though rarely heard about in modern-day tennis, it's true that carpet tennis courts do exist and are still used in many parts of the world today, having once held the proud status throughout the late 20th century as one of the 4 main surfaces used at the professional level. Despite its once held reputation as the de facto choice for indoor playing surface, even for decades gracing the courts of the esteemed Paris Masters, one of the most important men's tournaments of the year, the popularity and use of carpet severely dwindled into the 21st century, where eventually in 2009, the Association of Tennis Professionals controversially banned its use outright at all ATP-level events. A decision which drew ire from players and spectators not only dismayed by the removal of a surface known to have imparted a higher level of variety and challenge to the sport, but angry at the whispers that one particular top player had a significant say in the decision to abolish the surface. A far-fetched conspiracy theory that, as we'll later learn, turned out to be true. Why exactly did one of the sport's most predominant playing surfaces wither away into obscurity? A near extinction that reduced the availability of professional playing surfaces from 4 to 3. Well, first, I know what you're thinking. What in the world actually is a carpet tennis court? Most, of course, generally understand that hard courts are a combination of polyurethane or acrylic layers laid on top of a concrete or asphalt foundation, that clay courts are composed of crushed brick, shale stone, or other fine aggregate, and that grass courts are, well, grass. The catch-all term of carpet is slightly more ambiguous. Generally, you'll find the surface presented in 2 varieties: indoor and outdoor. Though there aren't any hard and fast rules dictating one particular setup, their compositions typically follow these guidelines. Outdoor carpet courts consist of an artificial turf surface layer filled with sand to occupy the space between the carpet fibers. The sand's purpose being to hold the carpet in place, to provide a firm playing surface, and to facilitate the drainage of surface water. For the purpose of this video, however, we'll focus on the version played on for decades by the game's greatest in front of millions worldwide: indoor carpet. First introduced in the late 1960s, the indoor variety was typically a textile surface of nylon or rubber matting rolled out like a normal carpet and laid upon a solid base. Developed to address the need for temporary tennis spaces that could quickly be set up inside non-tennis arenas, exemplified by its eventual use for tournaments inside the likes of Madison Square Garden and Royal Albert Hall. From its inception and introduction as an alternate playing surface, carpeting spread like wildfire through the tennis scene, where by 1978, a total of 38 pro tournaments were created using or switched to exclusively using carpeted tennis courts. Why? Simple. Cost, simplicity, and logistics. For a fraction of the price normally budgeted for constructing a purpose-built tennis center, tournament organizers can now instead rent out an existing arena or stadium built to seat thousands and host their week-long event there by simply shipping in the specialized carpet and rolling it out the day before play. Logistically, this new setup also allowed for many northern cities worldwide to cheaply host professional tennis during the winter months in a way that was financially feasible. Again, all that was needed was a multi-purpose arena. Now, of course, despite its versatility, no one was arguing that an unrolled rubber or nylon mat was truly comparable to a traditional, permanent tennis court, whose many layers worked to create as stable and comfortable of a surface as possible. Before the particular mentioned setting suited for its criteria, carpet was a resilient playing area that was cheap, required little maintenance with the ability to easily be transported as needed, and could be used year-round indoors or out, with resistance to both frost and softening by heat. So prevalent was the surface that by the late 1970s, virtually every indoor-based tennis tournament organized for years on end, far more of which existed when compared to today, was played on carpet. Events that included the ATP Finals, Paris Masters, Swiss Indoors, and the Kremlin Cup, to name a few. To put this into perspective, out of all-time great Jimmy Connor's record 109 ATP singles titles, a whopping 45 of them were won solely on carpet, a ratio not unlike other comparable players during that era. However, not dissimilar to how shag carpets eventually disappeared from our grandparents' living rooms, the carpet craze was silently racing towards an early grave. Though a myriad of obvious factors had precipitated the quick fix's surface fall from popularity, why was it that the ATP went as far as to outright officially ban the surface from use? And most interestingly, why did everyone blame one player in particular? Let's get one thing straight. Indoor carpet tennis courts aren't great, a sentiment echoed by many past players. As mentioned, unlike traditional and permanently built courts, the unrolled sheet of rubber or nylon that constituted a tennis surface oftentimes produced irregular and skidding bounces due to dead spots, provided an unsafe level of traction conducive to foot and ankle injuries, and played fast, very fast, a court speed comparable to grass of the day. A one-sided trait suitable for big servers with fast-paced ground strokes, but highly unfavorable for players who instead relied on counterpunching. Keeping these facts in mind, it's important to understand that carpet's initial decline in use actually had very little to do with the surface itself, but rather, what surrounded the surface, or what didn't surround the surface. See, the international landscape of tennis has gradually shifted over the past half-century, with less tournaments concentrated so heavily in North America and Europe, having now been dispersed more evenly into emerging Asian markets like United Arab Emirates, Kazakhstan, and China. According to former WTA chief Stacey Alister, the growth of outdoor fall tennis in Asia resulted in a reduced number of indoor tournaments once available to players at that time of year. Alister went as far as acknowledging on record that these more spacious, mild-weather outdoor events allowed for larger player fields and attendance numbers, a direction the organization aimed to continue pursuing. Even without this admission, the numbers spoke volumes. In 1994, 25 men's and 16 women's tour events were held indoors. 2 decades later, just 15 and 8 respectively. Now, while this shift from indoors to outdoors was occurring, something else was also becoming more apparent to tennis fans as the years went on. Traditionally fast tennis courts were slowing down. Though tennis officials for decades have remained steadfastly tight-lipped when it comes to divulging historical court pace index statistics, we know from press releases that in 2001, Wimbledon courts switched grass composition to 100% ryegrass, a change acknowledged by the head groundskeeper at the time to have yielded higher bounces and slower play. Jim Curley, former US Open tournament director, admitted that organizers had slowed down the hard courts in 2002 by adding more sand into the paint mix, and did so again in 2003. In fact, by plotting out average rally length at the 4 Grand Slams over a selected 20-year span, we find that while tennis's major surfaces remain cosmetically distinct, their play styles have fundamentally become homogeneous. As imagined, this most likely had to do with money, as grinding baseline battles that lead to 6-hour finals are of far more interest to new or casual fans than the tactics and precision employed when solely serving and volleying. Taking all of these factors into account, though by 2008 only one ATP Tour level event and a small number of minor league challengers were still left using carpet tennis courts, the ATP controversially gave notice of their intention to outright ban the surface beginning in 2009, citing that the decision was made for different reasons, but the most important is to adopt homogeneous surfaces, which will reduce the risk of injury. While the ban was supposedly said to have been agreed upon by the then top 50 players in rankings, rumors swirled that the decision to bring about carpet's abrupt demise was instead made at the request of one top player in particular, a rumor that only 9 years later was confirmed to be partially true. In a 2018 interview with French newspaper L'Équipe, former Paris Masters tournament director between 2007 to 2011, Jean-François Cajol, finally divulged the truth that during his tenure, he secretly had one singular goal in mind. Before he left, Roger Federer had to win the title. Federer, however, despite being known for his many triumphs on fast-paced indoor courts, had stopped playing the event in 2003, despite the Paris Masters being one of the most point-heavy and lucrative tournaments of the year. When Cajol pressed Federer's team in early 2007 as to why he wasn't coming, he learned that Roger's refusal stemmed from his hatred of the carpet surface. He wanted Federer, he had to rip up the carpet entirely. And so he did. That year, brand new indoor hard courts were installed from a manufacturer specifically recommended by Federer himself. But even those courts weren't to the Swiss's liking, as the ball was bouncing too high and playing too slow for his game style. So once again, a new, faster hardcourt material was found and installed in 2010 that on paper suited Roger's game to a T. In 2011, Federer finally conquered the Paris Masters, and with Paris giving up on carpet, it was only a matter of time before the smaller tournaments, and eventually the ATP, did so as well. Now, though carpet tennis courts have long since disappeared from televised and live-streamed professional tennis, that hardly matters if you weren't able to watch anyway, as a significant number of tennis fans live in countries where a majority of live content is geo-blocked and inaccessible due to bizarre ATP, WTA, Grand Slam international streaming agreements. That's why I want to tell you about NordVPN, the sponsor of today's video, because simply put, a VPN is an effortless and extremely affordable tool that essentially allows you to connect to the internet via a different country. Why would you do this? Well, for me in the United States, a VPN allows me to watch a plethora of international tennis streams from TV providers all over the world that are normally blocked in my country. For example, stream Wimbledon from the BBC using a UK server, or the French Open for free from France.tv on a French server. It's that easy. Really, it's not complicated. You press a button to switch it on, choose a particular country if needed, and that's it. More than that, in just everyday internet usage, NordVPN continually hides your IP address and encrypts all of your web traffic to prevent websites and trackers from snooping on you and your location. All of this in addition to their new threat protection feature, which protects you from malicious websites, malware, hackers, and intrusive ads. These amazing features all happen in the background and require zero technical knowledge to get started. And best of all, use my link on screen right now to get a 2-year plan plus 4 additional months with a huge discount. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, so be sure to check it out.